For all the businessmen and women, move out of the darkness, follow the light. Come sell your business with us today. Home Digital FM, let your customers know what you're offering. Be on top of your competitors. Home Digital FM, we will help you stand out. Come advertise with us today for all your businesses. We offer live program coverage both on Facebook Live and on the radio. Exos to sell your products and services. The media is in control. Tell your customers when, where, and how to meet you through Home Digital FM. Don't worry. Do your business. We will sell you out. Call us today on 734-3125 or 200-5770 620-1413 766-8394. Home Digital FM. Follow the light.
Hello and a very warm welcome to your Week in Review program Africa This Week, looking at the continent's top stories over the last 7 days. Coming up in this edition, Nigeria's Federal High Court sentenced the Inspector General of Police to 3 months in prison for flouting a 2011 court order. A violent scuffle in Senegal's parliament after a male opposition lawmaker slapped a female colleague in the face amid growing tensions between ruling and opposition party politicians. Ghanaian lawmakers frowned at the absence of the finance minister from the parliament during the opening of the debate on the 2023 budget, describing it as disrespectful.
It is becoming too much for this finance minister. You don't just present a budget and travel abroad or go and sit in your office. The Speaker, we cannot accept this. He should come before we start the debate.
Guinea-Bissau announced the trial of 25 civilians and military personnel accused of taking part in last February's failed coup attempt will start on Tuesday. Elsewhere on the continent, the future of South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa hangs in the balance after an independent panel said there was evidence suggesting he committed serious misconduct after millions of dollars in cash were reportedly stolen from his private game range almost 3 years ago.
If President Ramaphosa is recalled now, we'll end up with corrupt President Mabuza. If President Ramaphosa survives until the elective conference but is defeated then, we could end up with a corrupt President Mkhize. And if President Ramaphosa somehow triumphs at the conference, we're stuck with a corrupt and compromised President Ramaphosa.
A former president of the Comoros sentenced to life in jail for selling the country's passports to stateless people living in the Gulf during his presidency. Civil society groups in Kenya raised an alarm over the country's condom shortage, warning that it would wreak havoc and put lives at risk. In our new human interest segment, we meet a Gambian man who was persuaded to take the back way to Libya, hoping to reach Europe for a better life, a hope that resulted in his long imprisonment, enslavement, torture, and other degrading treatment.
A lot of people die in that prison anyway because of the lack of hygiene in that prison anyway.
You watch people die?
I watch people die. I even watch them. Dead bodies inside there. We Muslims, we used to pray inside there.
In sports, the end of the World Cup journey for Cameroon, Ghana and Tunisia in Qatar, leaving Senegal and Morocco as Africa's last hope as they progress to the last 16. We'll hear from fans in Doha.
We will not stop here. We will really go far in this game, inshallah.
I believe in the team. I like the team. It's just one of those things. It's football. It's a game. Let's go home.
Also coming up, our special guest, a young Nigerian sexual reproductive health and rights specialist who is hosting an exhibition of the Nigerian sensuality to push for fairer discourse on issues of sexuality in her complex and patriarchal country.
To let the Nigerian woman see herself in frames, to see herself as beautiful in ways that she regularly would not look at herself because she's plagued or burdened by all of the societal expectations/noise about what she should be, what she could be, and all of that.
These and more on today's program. Stay with us.
Africa This Week, coming to you from Home Digital, 99.9 FM in the heart of Brikama.
Sheriff Bojang Jnr.
Thanks for joining us. We start in Nigeria, where a federal high court sentenced Inspector General of Police Usman Baba to 3 months in prison for flouting a 2011 court order. According to local media reports, the ruling followed a lawsuit by a police officer who was fired in 1992. The officer challenged his forced retirement and his dismissal was later quashed in court. In a ruling delivered on Tuesday, Justice Emo Olajuwon held that the police chief should be committed to prison and detained in custody for a period of 3 months, or until his office obeyed an order made by the court since October 2011 to reinstate the sacked police officer. Olajuwon noted that though the Police Service Commission recommended the officer's reinstatement into the Nigeria Police Force, a decision that was affirmed by the court, the IGP's office refused to comply with the order. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has said that the war between Russia and Ukraine was allowing arms and fighters to stream into Africa's Lake Chad region, bolstering the strength of terrorist groups. The Nigerian leader was speaking Tuesday in Abuja during a summit of heads of state from the Lake Chad Basin Commission. He called for more vigilance and cooperation among the Commission's 6 member nations against the increased proliferation of weapons into the Lake Chad Basin.
This illegal movement of arms into the region has heightened the proliferation of small arms and light weapons, which continues to threaten our collective peace and security in the region. We must strive to continue to view our region through the lens of equity, fairness, diversity, and inclusion. It is imperative that we all see ourselves reflected in the kind of leadership we provide. We must continue to support and contribute to the success of the organization.
Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari. Still on security issues, the Deputy Secretary General of United Nations, Amina Mohammed, has called on the Nigerian and other sub-regional governments to invest more on human capital development in order to address the root cause of conflicts and insecurity. The Nigerian-born top diplomat was speaking during a visit to the Martin Luther Agwai International Leadership and Peacekeeping Center in Kaduna, northern Nigeria.
We all know that now our conflicts are crossing borders. The Sahel has very huge issues to deal with. So it requires everyone to come together. This is one of the initiatives that we hope to support, because behind every conflict, behind every insurgency, there are root causes. Root causes are a lack of investment and development, and that too is a complex issue. So we hope that in time that we can address those root causes, that more young people are able to have a job. They see a future in their country. They are included. Democracies are strengthened. And I think that, peace building is one of those very key building blocks to getting back to where we would like to be.
The Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, speaking in Kaduna in northern Nigeria. A violent scuffle broke out in Senegal's parliament on Thursday after a male opposition lawmaker slapped a female colleague in the face amid growing tensions between ruling and opposition party politicians. During a budget presentation, opposition MP Masata Samba walked over and slapped Amin Jai Nibi of the ruling Beno Bokayakar coalition, setting off a flurry of calls. Nibi threw a chair back at Samba before another MP tackled her to the floor. The session, which was being shown live on television, was suspended as lawmakers traded blows, accusations, and insults. Before the scuffle began, Samba was addressing the assembly about comments Nibi made over the weekend, in which he criticized a spiritual leader opposed to President Macky Sall's alleged plan to launch a third-term bid. Tensions have grown between ruling and opposition politicians since a July legislative election in which the ruling party lost its comfortable majority, damaged in part by concerns President Sall will seek a third term in 2024. Sall has refused to state clearly whether he plans to run for a third term, a move the opposition say would be in breach of term limits and of an earlier promise. But the president's supporters argue a constitutional reforms reset the clock, allowing him to run again. Ghanaian lawmakers have described the absence of the finance minister from the parliament during the opening of the debate on the 2023 budget as disrespectful. Ken Ofori-Atta last week Thursday presented to the parliament the 2023 budget statement, the government's economic policy for the year ending 31st December 2023. But when lawmakers gathered at the parliament to debate on it, he was absent, with the speaker announcing that he had left for Germany for an official mission. Some of the parliamentarians took offense, suggesting the debate be put on hold until he was present in the chamber.
So you can't just come and move the motion and you are not there. Remember, we are in a critical stage as a country. And members have researched. Over the weekend, we were all in. You took us there. You gave us technical insight and guidance. Members are prepared to make their input. And Mr. Speaker, it is only appropriate that the finance minister must be here. Mr. Speaker, if he's not ready to do the job, he must let the House know. The matter raised by the Deputy Whip on the minority side is very grave, Mr. Speaker. This attitude is becoming too much. Mr. Speaker, the practice where ministers of finance present budget and fail to collect input should not be entertained. It is becoming too much from this finance minister. You don't just present a budget and travel abroad or go and sit in your office. Mr. Speaker, we cannot accept this. You should come before we start the debate.
Ghanaian MPs in Accra. Burkina Faso's interim leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has announced that he was the target of a coup attempt last week. In a meeting with civil society organizations Thursday, Captain Traoré said he knew who was behind the attempt, but added he was not going to make any arrests. He said he instead preferred dialogue and that the situation was under control. Captain Traoré took power in Burkina Faso on 30th September through a coup by ousting his predecessor, Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Damiba, who himself had seized power through a coup. Now to Guinea-Bissau. The trial of 25 civilians and military personnel accused of taking part in last February's failed coup attempt against President Umaro Sissoco Embalo will begin on Tuesday. The trial will be held at the Regional Court of Bissau, according to Portugal's Lusa News agency, citing a judicial source. Among those to be tried is former head of the Navy, Vice Admiral Jose Americo Bubo Nachuto. They are accused of attempted coup d'etat as well as of the death of 11 people, most of them officials of the security team of President Embalo. On February 1st this year, a group of armed men reportedly attacked the presidential palace in Bissau while a meeting of the Council of Ministers in which Embalo was participating was taking place. The government referred to the alleged attackers as disgruntled soldiers and alleged they were backed by drug trafficking networks, machineries, and the MFDC rebels in neighboring southern Senegalese region of Casamance. Well, with more than a dozen coups or attempted coups since independence in 1974 and being used as a conduit for drug trafficking, news of the alleged coup attempt in February fitted a pattern of instability in Guinea-Bissau. The gun battle reportedly lasted 5 hours, resulting to the 11 deaths. President Embalo personally linked the alleged attack to what he called an attempted takeover to promote illegal drug trade in the country that was already notorious for being a transit hub for Latin American drug traffickers. For more on Guinea-Bissau's reputation as a transit point for drug lords, I joined Alan Yerombalo, a prominent Bissau-Guinean investigative journalist who has been investigating drug trafficking in the country for more than a decade. Alan, Guinea-Bissau has been one of the poorest countries in the world. But in contrast, drug trafficking, which is associated with Guinea-Bissau, is one of the richest activities in the world. Why does Guinea-Bissau remain poor despite being a hub of one of the richest illegal activities in the world?
It's simple to explain. It's because this activity is managed by a small group, maybe less than 20 people that have connection in the high level of the administration and in the army. So what the population win with this? Nothing, absolutely. I'm giving you an example. There is a plane that lands just close to a village called Amdelai. What the army did is closed the circulation in this village. Everybody has to stay, to remain at home when they are just taking a cocaine from the plane to their car and they go away, leaving just on the place 2 generators that just provide electricity to guide this plane so that it can land on the highway. And the population stays like this. When in the morning they just wake up and see these generators, they want to just collect it. There was a fight between them.
And when, for example, the international community talks about drug trafficking in Guinea-Bissau, they just don't specifically mention that it's just this little percentage of people who are involved. The country is criticized as a whole. Would you say that the common man of Guinea-Bissau is a victim rather than a culprit?
It's a victim. The common Guinean is a victim of this system. It means that the name of the country is used, infrastructure of the country is used by this just a small group of people. The population, they don't get any profit of this.
What are the key physical proof or the key physical signs of drug trafficking in Guinea-Bissau? For example, when you go cars, houses, what do you see to know that there is drug trafficking here?
Yeah, it's just the new constructions, which value is around 200 or sometimes more than that, millions of CFA. Cars also, cars with the value of 100 and something millions of US dollar.
And Guinea-Bissau salaries cannot afford that.
No. The SMIC, what we have, the lowest SMIC in Guinea-Bissau is 19,000 CFA. And if you see these people driving big cars, having big houses, which are very expensive, you may realize that they didn't own nothing from their elders, they didn't do any activities giving them so much money.
So it's drugs.
So you just make a conclusion that they are implicated in the drug trafficking. This is a problem we have now, actually.
And then drug trafficking, is a very, very dangerous trade as well. People who are involved are very powerful military chiefs who assassinate people and do whatever they want to do. And you choose to investigate this. Why?
If I look at the past, I have been a child soldier when I was 13 years. And my father died to free this country. So for me...
During the liberation
war. So for me, it's just heavy things I have in my own mind to get this country as my father think before, because this is the engagement he have. That's why he involved himself in the.
So you want to liberate your country out of drugs?
Yes, I won't have to liberate this country. So I say that this is my job. I don't have money. I don't have weapon. I have only my microphone and my pen. But this pen, I want to use it in a very good manner to denounce these people that want to destroy the country, that want just to destroy also the relationship we have in the society.
But these people involved in the drug trade, they crush anybody who want to come between them and the money, the drugs money. Are you afraid sometimes for your life?
Yes. Now in Bissau, I'm always with a gun on me because the
so you have your own gun to protect yourself.
I take in charge of my own protection because the government is not able to protect anybody. If you see the example, in 2009, the head of state has been killed. And he's supposed to get the more protected man in Bissau. He has been killed. And there is a lot of assassination in the country of people that are really supposed to be very good protected.
But do you think your gun can protect you?
No, it doesn't protect you, but it's a measure for me to get myself, to be sure that sometimes I'm doing something to protect myself.
But sometimes do you worry that you might die in the hands of people in doing your work?
Yeah. Sometimes that's come to me because I have kids and then in the need of my presence. But if you have conviction of what we are doing, sometimes you're not afraid to die.
Alain Yerombalo, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bojang.
Bissau Guinean investigative journalist Alain Yerombalo. In Ivory Coast, the trial of 18 people accused of responsibility for the deadly 2016 attack on a beach resort in Grand Bassam opened on Wednesday in the capital Abidjan. The attack was the first of its kind in Ivory Coast and confirmed the fears of Islamists growing rich in West Africa at the time. Gunmen from Al-Qaeda's North African branch killed 19 people and wounded 33 when they opened the fire on the beach. In a statement, public prosecutor Richard Adu said the defendants face charges of terrorism, assassination, attempted assassination, harboring of criminals, and illegal possession of firearms and ammunition. He said all of them are foreign nationals, although he did not reveal their nationalities. Only 4 of the 18 defendants were present at the courthouse on Wednesday, where security had been reinforced with a heavy contingent of armored vehicles and soldiers, according to media reports. Still in Ivory Coast, a former militia leader who was acquitted of crimes against humanity by the International Criminal Court (ICC) on Saturday returned home from exile. Charles Blake Goudé's return after 8 years of exile was part of efforts by the Ivorian government and other political stakeholders for reconciliation after many years of instability and conflict. In a video uploaded online, hundreds of supporters wearing clothes printed with Blake Goudé's image could be seen singing and dancing in the Yopougon suburb of the capital to welcome him home. He arrived on a commercial flight from a neighboring Ghana on Saturday afternoon. The return of Blake Goudé following his acquittal by the ICC in The Hague in 2019 is part of a wider rapprochement between political factions in Ivory Coast that President Alassane Ouattara hopes will reduce political tension ahead of elections in 2025. Blake Goudé, who headed the notorious Young Patriots Still militia during Laurent Gbagbo's presidency, was accused of inciting attacks on civilians and the United Nations soldiers. A museum in southeast London in the UK over the week began the official process of returning looted Benin bronzes to Nigeria. The Honeyman Museum, which houses a collection of 72 treasured items that were taken by force from Benin City in 1897, officially handed over ownership of the artifacts to the Nigerian government on Monday. They were seized along with thousands of other items in a British military incursion and ended up in museums in Europe and the United States. African countries have battled for years to recover works pillaged by explorers and colonizers, while Western institutions are grappling with the cultural legacies of colonialism. The Honeyman described returning the looted objects as a moral and appropriate response after a request from Nigeria's National Commission for Museums and Monuments. Among the Nigerian delegates who received the artifacts in London on behalf of Nigeria was Godwin Obaseki, the governor of Edo State, where Benin City is located. This soundbite is courtesy of Nigeria's Channels TV.
To witness a major collection being returned back is quite significant, and we're hoping it will indicate the trends to come. We have our largest collections of Benin bronze works outside of Benin or outside of Nigeria in the London Museum, and those pieces are ours and should be returned.
That was Godwin Obaseki, the governor of Edo State in Nigeria. You are listening to Africa This Week program on Home Digital with me, Bojang Jnr. A reminder of our top stories. Nigeria's Federal High Court sentenced the Inspector General of Police to 3 months in prison for flouting a 2011 court order. A violent scuffle in Senegal's parliament after a male opposition lawmaker slapped a female colleague in the face amid growing tensions between ruling and opposition party politicians. And Ghanaian lawmakers frowned at the absence of the finance minister from the parliament during the opening of the debate on the 2023 budget, describing it as disrespectful. Still ahead in the program, a former president of the Comoros sentenced to life in jail for selling the country's passports to stateless people living in the Gulf during his presidency. And civil society groups in Kenya raised an alarm over the country's condom shortage, warning that it will wreak havoc and put lives at risk. We also have sports, our special guest, and more. Stay with us.
Africa This Week, coming to you from Home Digital 99.9 FM in the heart of Brikama.
Now to South Africa, where the future of the president Cyril Ramaphosa hangs in the balance as calls for him to step aside or be impeached grow. A 3-member panel set up to inquire if Ramaphosa should be impeached after millions of dollars in cash were discovered at his private farm submitted its recommendations to the parliament on Wednesday. The panel, chaired by a former Chief Justice, found that he violated his oath of office, which could lead to an impeachment inquiry. In June, it emerged that an estimated $4 million was robbed at the president's Palapala farm back in 2020, raising questions about how the president, who took power on the promise to fight graft, acquired the cash and whether he declared it. Before the findings came out Wednesday, Ramaphosa was the clear favorite to lead the ruling National African Congress ANC into elections in 2024 and secure a second presidential term. But with less than a month to go before the party chooses its next candidate, he is now battling for political survival. The main opposition, Democratic Alliance, DA, said it would table a motion to dissolve parliament for early elections to give power back to the people. John Steenhuisen is the party's leader.
The events of the past 24 hours, with the handover of the independent panel's report into the Palapala allegations, represents a seismic shift in South African politics. Many South Africans chose what they thought was the ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa precisely because they felt that they had to keep the other ANC out. The party of Nelson Mandela has become a cesspit of corruption, greed, and dishonesty from top to bottom. If President Ramaphosa is recalled now, we'll end up with a corrupt President Mabuza. If President Ramaphosa survives until the elective conference but is defeated then, we could end up with a corrupt President Mkhize. And if President Ramaphosa somehow triumphs at the conference, we're stuck with a corrupt and compromised President Ramaphosa. But there is one more option available to voters. And thankfully, the authors of our Constitution had the foresight to include this in the document. And that option is for a simple majority of 50% plus one of the National Assembly, your representatives, to vote for the dissolution of government, which would then trigger an early election. We will table this motion in the National Assembly, and we will call on all members of the House, regardless of party affiliation, to support it so that we can urgently close this chapter and get back to dealing with our country's many challenges. Too many of our citizens are in a desperate situation, and they need a government that's going to fight for them right now. And so I ask today that you don't lose heart and become despondent. The Democratic Alliance calls for a national election, not one involving 4,000 delegates at an ANC conference, but one that gives all South Africans the opportunity to determine their future. A future free of corruption, a future with jobs, a future for our children.
John Steenhuisen, the leader of the main opposition Democratic Alliance Party in South Africa. Meanwhile, President Ramaphosa's spokesperson Vincent Magwenya said the president has all options on the table regarding the report by a panel of experts that found preliminary evidence that he may have violated the Constitution and committed misconduct. At a briefing to reporters in Cape Town Thursday, Magwenya said Ramaphosa was still consulting about the report's recommendations. He also apologized for an impression that Ramaphosa would address the nation on Thursday night.
Due to heightened expectations and levels of interest that the president will address the nation tonight, I had spoken to some of the media colleagues and indicated that an announcement was imminent. I did not provide any specific timelines. However, we appreciate and understand as to how an expectation of an address to the nation will rise because of high levels of interest on the matter. The President appreciates the urgency of this issue. The President appreciates the enormity of this issue, what it means for the country, the stability of government, and as a result of that, he is still processing the report, but in that exercise, he's also engaging a number of role players and stakeholders across the governing party, different levels of the governing party, at different levels of the alliance, and he's engaging a broad range of stakeholders. And this is in appreciation of, as I said, the enormity of the matter. We are in an unprecedented and extraordinary moment as a constitutional democracy as a result of the report, and therefore whatever decision the President makes, that decision has to be informed by the best interest of the country, and that decision cannot be rushed and cannot be taken in haste.
South Africa's presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya speaking to reporters in Cape Town, South Africa. Meanwhile, reports from South Africa say some of the country's biggest businesses have voiced their support for a panel that found that Ramaphosa may have broken the law in his handling of a robbery at his farm. Business Leadership South Africa, a grouping that includes Shell, MTN, Citigroup and BMW, among others, said Wednesday's report against Ramaphosa was healthy for democracy and urged the authorities to continue investigating without fear or favor. In another news, in South Africa, the man who has been serving a jail term for killing a prominent anti-apartheid leader 3 decades ago was Tuesday stabbed in prison, a few days after he was granted parole by South Africa's Constitutional Court and was expected to be released. Janus Wallus, a far-right Polish citizen, fatally shot Chris Hani, a popular and fierce opponent of the apartheid regime, in the driveway of his house in 1993, a year before South Africa's first multiracial elections. The shooting occurred just as negotiations to end apartheid were entering their final phase, stoking tensions that some feared would erupt into civil war. His killing triggered nationwide riots that threatened to derail South Africa's transition to multiracial democracy after decades of white minority rule under apartheid. Wallus had emigrated from then-communist Poland in 1981 and became involved in far-right politics in South Africa. The Constitutional Court last week granted him parole, a decision that was met with fierce criticism and protest across the country. South Africa's Home Affairs Minister on Monday granted residence to Wallus so that he could serve his parole period in the country. In a statement, the Department of Correctional Services said he was stabbed by another inmate from the same housing unit. It described his health condition as stable and said healthcare officials were providing him with the necessary care. Lawyers in Chad have gone on strike Tuesday in a protest against the mass trial of more than 400 people detained over deadly anti-government protests. Officially, around 50 people, including 10 members of the security forces, died when police opened a fire on demonstrators in the capital in N'Djamena and several other cities on October 20th. But opposition groups argued the actual toll was much higher, alleging that unarmed civilians were massacred. The trial of the 401 detainees is set to run until December 4th inside the high-security prison of Korotoro in the middle of the desert, more than 600 kilometers northeast of the capital. Prosecutors say the accused persons face several charges, including taking part in an unauthorized gathering, destroying belongings, arson, and disturbing public order. According to the public prosecutor, 621 people were arrested in N'Djamena after the protest, all of whom were transferred to Korotoro. But the Chad Bar Association, in a statement, described the trial as parody of justice, saying that the detainees had been kidnapped and deported to Korotoro in the absence of any lawyers. The association said the trial in the remote prison violated procedural regulations, adding that its members have decided to stop all activity for the duration of the trial. A court in the Comoros on Monday handed down a life sentence for high treason to ex-President Ahmed Abdallah Sambi, who was convicted of selling passports to stateless people living in the Gulf. Sambi, 64, was sentenced by the State Security Court, a special judicial body whose ruling cannot be appealed. Prosecutors had sought a life sentence for the former president, who was initially tried in absentia for high treason. Sambi, who led the small Indian Ocean country between 2006 and 2011, passed a law in 2008 allowing the sale of passports at an exorbitant fee. The scheme aimed at the so-called Bidun, an Arab minority numbering in the tens of thousands who cannot obtain citizenship. He was accused of embezzling millions of dollars under the scheme. The prosecution said the cost was more than $1.8 billion, more than the impoverished nation's GDP. A lawyer for civilian plaintiffs said the Sambi administration was giving thugs the right to sell Comorian nationality as if they were selling peanuts. Sambi had already spent 4 years behind bars before he faced trial, far exceeding the maximum 8 months. He was originally placed under house arrest for disturbing public order. The head of Russia's controversial Wagner private military group said a Zambian student who died fighting for Russia in Ukraine had been fighting for Wagner. Businessman Yevgeny Prigozhin, a close ally of President Vladimir Putin, said this on Tuesday. The 23-year-old Zambian student Lemekani Nyirenda went from serving a prison sentence near the Russian capital to dying at war in September, prompting Zambia to ask Russia for an explanation. Nyirenda's father said he had been serving a 9-year jail sentence on the outskirts of Moscow for a drug offense when he was conscripted to fight. His family said it was unclear how he was recruited or by whom. On Tuesday, Prigozhin's Concord Catering Group said Nyirenda had been recruited by Wagner. Reuters said Prigozhin and other Wagner representatives have toured Russian prisons offering amnesty in return for signing up to fight for Russia in Ukraine. The Wagner boss said Nyirenda had died a hero and that he was one of the first to break into the enemy trenches in Ukraine on September 22nd. Kenya during the week hosted a third round of talks aimed at bringing peace to the volatile eastern provinces of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The East African Community Regional Bloc convened a meeting in Nairobi to discuss how to solve the political, security, and social problems that have plagued the eastern DRC for decades. While President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda emphasized the need to strengthen ongoing sub-regional military aggression against the M23 rebels in DRC, Kenya's William Ruto and Rwanda's Paul Kagame based their speeches at the Nairobi meeting on dialogue and peaceful solution. First, President Museveni.
The operation which has been going on for almost a year now, conducted by the Congolese army and the Uganda army in the 3 sectors of North Kivu and Ituri, has shown that we have the capacity to deal with these groups in spite of the difficult terrain, the forest and so on.
We are here to emphasize the urgent need for dialogue, de-escalation, and to encourage and facilitate every actor to intensify their pursuit through the effective engagement of regional and international dispute resolution mechanisms. For us, as leaders in this region, we take this assignment as an assignment of our lifetime.
What is needed today more than ever is a steady political will to implement the ongoing regional initiatives, particularly the East African community-led Nairobi peace process and the African Union mediation by President Lorenzo of Angola. This should include seriously addressing the root causes of insecurity once and for all, which will make a real difference in resolving the security concerns of the DRC and the neighboring countries.
Rwandan President Paul Kagame. First, you heard from Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni and Kenya's William Ruto. Civil society groups in Kenya have raised an alarm over the country's condom shortage, warning that it will wreak havoc and put lives at risk. According to official figures, Kenya requires about 455 million condoms annually, but only 150 million have been currently distributed by the government. Local reports said condom dispensers have been empty and public hospitals ran out long ago, with demand outstripping supply. Now let's take a break from news to switch to some human interest story. The irregular migration to Europe, popularly known in the Gambia as backway journey, has caused so much pain and tears for many Gambian families. Over the last decade, so many Gambians, overwhelming majority of them young men and women, have died trying to cross the Mediterranean through conflict-prone countries as well as deserts to get to Europe, mainly for greener pastures. Many others who survive and either reached the shores of Europe or were repatriated to the Gambia have been traumatized by what they experienced in the journey. In today's program, I meet Ibrahima, a Gambian man who was persuaded to take the back way to Libya, hoping to reach Europe for a better life. A hope that did not only turn out to be false, but also resulted to his long imprisonment, enslavement, torture, and other degrading treatments. I must, however, warn that some listeners may find the content of Ibrahima's story distressing.
Mine was a peer pressure, peer influence also. I've been teaching as an unqualified teacher for almost 4 years. So now I said, let me go and be a qualified teacher now. So, but these guys keep calling me, sending me photos of false photos, that this is what we have in Europe, this is what we do. So they even send me videos of sitting inside the class learning, trying to pursue education in the university. They were helped by the Red Cross and whatever. A lot of lies were sent to me. So these are the information that I gather. Now I take them seriously. I said, wow, once my colleagues went and I in the university is now doing good in Italy, so let me also embark on the journey.
On a cool, cloudy day in February 2015, Ibrahima said his goodbyes to his wife and their young daughter and kicked off the journey, having paid the smuggling agent an equivalent of almost his annual salary as a junior teacher.
He promised to take me safely to Tripoli, that's the capital city of Libya. So I deposited the money here. So I was traveling through his contacts. When I went to Senegal, one of his colleagues there picked me up, sent me to Mali, another colleague picked me up, sent me to Burkina Faso, another colleague there picked me up, sent me to Niger, another colleague picked me up there, sent me to Agadez. From Agadez, I crossed the desert. It took me 7 weeks, before I find myself in Tripoli.
What are some of the most challenging moments of your journey before you arrived in Libya?
The borders. Apart from the Gambia, any other border that you have to pass, you either pay huge money or they beat you seriously. And I have experienced all those kind of torture. I was seriously beaten at all the borders that I have passed through before I find myself in Libya. And I have seen again my colleagues who suffered, especially girls. Because when I reached at Agadez, I was shocked. There I have to change my mind. I said to myself that I have to come back home.
Agadez in central Niger is the crossroads and one of the most important and difficult hubs for northbound West and Central African migrants like Ibrahima.
The desert was tough because we were 36 people inside one truck behind. The truck, we were 36. Can you imagine this Gambian pickups?
Open pickups?
Yeah, these open pickups.
Despite the heat, the dust, the sun, everything.
We were 36 inside that pickup. But 9 were not lucky. They did not survive the desert.
They died?
Two female and the rest are all.
In front of you?
Yeah. We have to stop and bury them and continue.
Rocked by a decade of war, lawlessness and insecurity, Libya, especially its capital Tripoli, has become a key conduit for migrants, mainly from African countries south of the Sahara, seeking to reach Europe through the Mediterranean. But many of them instead find themselves stranded in the troubled city, where they are often held in trafficking warehouses and forced to endure torture, enslavement and extortion for ransoms at the hands of the Libyan guards, militias and smuggling agents. Ibrahima's arrival marked the beginning of another round of personal ordeal for him.
I was just kept into one room, not only me, almost 100 of us, by our agent. Just kept us at a big house, just like a magazine. We were put inside a storeroom.
After 2 weeks inside the trafficking warehouse, Ibrahima finally made it to the Mediterranean Sea towards Europe in a dinghy boat. Overloaded, the boat did not make it far enough.
We have already gone for 24 hours. So it's where we were arrested, inside the boat. We were 150 inside that boat. With the entire water 150, we were all Africans except 16 were Bangladesh. You have Nigerians, you have Senegalese, you have Gambians, Guinea-Conakry, you have Liberians in that boat. It was hell. I was happy of the arrest myself. When I saw the Libyan Navy around us, I was really happy, because otherwise, in the next 3 hours, when we could not reach, we would have died, because already the boat started sinking. Some of us started crying, screaming that we were going to die. Others were doing their last prayers. It's when this Navy boat reached us and then we were arrested. People like me, when I saw them, I was saying, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. It's better I go to the prison than dying on the Mediterranean. We were treated bad, because can you imagine, after I spent 6 months down there at the first prison that we were, can you imagine the clothes that I was taken with from that first prison were the same clothes that I wear, that trouser and that shirt, for 8 good months in that prison. And there is no water to bath. So we don't even brush our teeth. A lot of people die in that prison anyway, because of the lack of hygiene in that prison anyway.
You watch people die?
Yeah, I watch people die. I even watch them, dead bodies inside there. We Muslims, we used to pray inside there. So when they die, we watch, because I was one of the elders inside that prison. They respect me and honored me a lot. So most of the things that happen, so we help each other. Wash the body and knock on the door and tell the Arab man that someone passed away. They'll just come and pick the body and took us, 1 or 2 of us. They take us to the desert. We just dug some sand, not that far, that deep. We just put the body there for cover with the clothes that they wear. So inside the prison that I was, within that 8 months, almost 11 people died. 11. The last person that died there before the IOM came to pick us was a good friend of mine that I always used to sit with. He's called Ibrahim. He's a Senegalese. He is from Tambacounda. Before he died, he asked me to put my hand into his pocket and pick all his numbers and communication contacts. Anything that happened to him, make sure that I call those numbers and inform his people.
As it turned out, Ibrahima would have his luck in Guyana prison.
We were fortunate that the IOM visited the prison and they asked us all to come out.
Back home in the Gambia, Ibrahima took it upon himself to travel to the town of Tambacounda across the border in Senegal to personally meet the family of his Senegalese friend who died in Guyana prison.
So when the IOM brought me back to the Gambia here is when I took one of those numbers I called, and that was directly the wife. So I could not explain it to the wife because she told me that I am Ibrahima's wife. So I said, where are your in-laws? So I was given to Ibrahima's father. Is how I spoke to him and I informed him, and they never knew that he died. But I gave them that information. So later they asked me to go there and visit them in Tamba. So after spending some months here, I went to Tamba and visited them and explained to them how everything happens. And the Senegalese delegations were there and listening to what I was saying, how it happens there. So
it must be very sad for them.
Yeah, it's really sad. That day it wasn't easy with them, because when they saw me in the house, it seems like it's Ibrahima that they've seen this. It seems like that's the day that Ibrahima died. So they started crying, so I told them, yeah. So the papers that Ibrahima even gave me, how he wrote those numbers, just to prove it to them, I said, you see, these are the papers that he gave me. So he asked me to call one of these numbers. So the first number that I called was the wife. So I have to hand over everything to them.
That was Ibrahima, a Gambian man who was persuaded to take the back way to Libya, hoping to reach Europe for a better life. Now time for sports.
Let's go!
It was a week of drama, triumph, jubilation, disappointment, and heartbreak for Africa's 5 giants representing the continent at the World Cup in Qatar. Tunisia, Cameroon, and Ghana all crashed out of the tournament, while Senegal and Morocco won their battles to the last 16. Cameroon Friday night beat Brazil 1-0, but the victory was too little too late, as the Samba boys maintained their top group position, followed by Switzerland, who beat Serbia 3-2 to qualify to the last 16 alongside Brazil. In the earlier grudge match Saturday, Ghana's hope of revenge against Uruguay, who eliminated them from the World Cup controversially 12 years ago, was dashed by a 2-0 defeat, sending them packing. Here is the reaction of some Ghanaian fans in Qatar, courtesy of Sahara Football YouTube channel.
We could all see from the game that as we the supporters came for a win, the players came for a revenge. We don't want revenge, we want a win. And now we are all out. It doesn't matter if Uruguay is out. Uruguay is not Ghana. Ghana is on its own. It doesn't matter what has happened before. Vengeance will come at its own time. And so they came for that and they got what they wanted. And so they might be happy, but we the supporters and Ghanaians back home are not happy. We weren't here for a revenge. We were here for a win. We are so heartbroken about the match that was played today. We are so heartbroken. Let's change our approach to games. We can't be doing the same thing over and over again. We'll get the same results. When you do the same thing over and over again, you get the same result. Let's change our mentality.
Yeah, the truth is, I'll start with gambling. Otuado keeps gambling the starting lineup. And then when we talk about World Cup, you have to always get a steady 11. That would definitely get you your wins. So Otuado should go and do his corrections, come back stronger, because this is not what we came to watch. We pay a lot to come here to just be here, support our country, and this is what we get. This was a revenge. I intentionally paid to be here for this revenge because I haven't watched any of the games. I was only waiting for this one, and this is what I get.
It's sad, but I am actually excited because if we are not going, Uruguay is definitely not going. We are the go house. I think when they didn't miss the penalty, it kind of affected the team, the morale of the team. So, but it's the Black Stars. That's how we do it. We break hearts, we win hearts. That's how it goes. So watch out, 2026, right? Yeah. We'll be back. I believe in the team. I like the team. It's just one of those things. It's football. It's a game. Let's go home.
Mixed reactions of Ghanaian football fans in Qatar, courtesy of Sahara Football YouTube channel. Sunday is expected to be an interesting battle of the Lions, as Senegal's Teranga Lions lock horns with England's 3 Lions. Senegal beat Uruguay to finish second in their group, behind the Netherlands, ahead of the clash of the Titans. One young Senegalese fan is super excited and hopeful of the Teranga Lions.
It's just amazing. We cannot even describe what we are feeling. We pray for it. Our team really deserve it, seriously. And we will not stop here. We will really go far in this game, inshallah. Because first, we have a strong team, and everyone knows it. Second of all, we have ambition and we have determination. I swear I couldn't eat. I was shouting every time. I swear to God, I was about to cry, bro. I was like, ah! So I hope with prayers and stuff we will be fine. Yeah.
A young Senegalese fan in Qatar. We wish her good luck. Morocco have progressed to the last 16 at the World Cup for the second time in their history after defeating Canada 2-1 and finishing top of the group. The Atlas Lions' only other trip past the group stage was in the 1986 World Cup in Mexico. They will now face Spain on Tuesday. Now time for our special guest segment. A young Nigerian sexual reproductive health expert is hosting a photo and art exhibition of the Nigerian woman's sensuality. Dugbe Kuku, whose work involves interrogating and influencing socio-structural determinants of behavior, said the exhibition titled Woman will be hosted in an intimate Epicurean ambience, during which the Nigerian woman will be witnessed as desiring and desirable. Dugbe Kuku is this week's special guest.
Woman is an exhibition to showcase the sensuality of the Nigerian woman. That's basically what it is, and the long and the short of it. So it's basically an exhibition that I put together to show the Nigerian woman in her different colors, as I call it. I mean, dark, fair, and in her different shapes. By that, of course, I mean curvy, slim, and all of that. Basically, that's what we're trying to achieve. To let the Nigerian woman see herself in frames, to see herself as beautiful in ways that she regularly would not look at herself, because she's plagued or burdened by all of the societal expectations / noise about what she should be, what she could be, and all of that. So yeah, that's what it is.
And those expectations include the color of the skin, with regards to women that bleach or use all the creams and everything else
Of course.
for their colors to change, and those who are very comfortable in their dark or even very dark skin.
Yes. I mean, I don't know if you guys are having to suffer it right now, but there's this craze for yellow women, the yellow. So everybody's trying to bleach, which of course is not healthy in the long run. But in the short run, it just shows you that there's a lot of insecurity in terms of complexion. And that's really weird, considering that we are the quote-unquote black continent. And now everybody's trying to do the exact opposite of being black. So yeah, there's that pressure from anonymous. I call it anonymous sources, because it's really anonymous. If you ask anybody that, okay, why are you trying to bleach? What's the root cause? Who is telling you that it's not enough to be dark skinned? You're going to get, they say, who are they?
And then the twin factors of religion and culture surround or at times bury the issue of sexuality in Nigeria. Do you think these two factors today define both the ways sexuality is expressed and discussed in your communities?
Yes, to a large extent, to a very large extent. Nigeria is a performatively religious society. And I say performatively religious to mean that we have as many churches as any street can contain, and as many mosques as any areas can contain. But despite that, we have a lot of hypocrisy. We have a lot of wrong things happening, because, of course, people are performatively religious. So they're going to be religious in the things that you see, but in their homes, in the places where you can't see, they're going to be human. And despite that, religion still holds a lot of sway on, quote unquote, public opinion on what is right, basically. So you have religious leaders coming to say on the pulpits that this and this and that are acceptable sexual behaviors. And you have those people, and the naive among them will take it home. And I say naive because you can't have one person pontificate what is the right sexual behavior, because that one person is not the encyclopedia of sexual behavior. Because sex is supposed to be something intimate between two persons. So when you make another human being to be the pontiff of your sexual behavior, then of course, you are signing up for what's actually going to be frustrating. And when it comes to culture has always, I think in almost all African societies, culture has always had a say on what is permissive sexual behavior, what is permissive normative behavior. But culture, to a large extent, is sort of broad in terms of, you can fornicate or you cannot fornicate. Culture is broad. Culture doesn't say, you can do certain sexual acts or you can't do sexual acts. And as Africans, we laud our rich cultural heritages. But what we also do is that in this century or in this age, in this time, we do not accept the fact that we have grown beyond certain behaviors. We do not accept the fact that we have also adapted new things, new knowledges, new ways of being and becoming. So you see people, you see men, to be fair, and women, older women, say, oh, as a woman, you're supposed to do this in the bedroom or not do that in the bedroom, or you're supposed to do this in the home or not do that in the home. And then you say, okay, yeah, I agree that you're saying that. But in this age, I now have to go to work 9 to 5. Are we factoring that into saying the things that I should do, which you claim are the things that my great-great-grandmothers did?
In your brief to introduce the exhibition, you wrote about conservative patriarchy and how male gaze is presented as nexus of female existence. What explains that?
Okay, so basically Nigerian society and many African societies are patriarchal in the term that we define the human existence by male needs. We define the human existence in its entirety by masculinity. And that might not entirely be bad, to be fair, except for the fact that when we do that now, we lose a lot of things that we have learned. So, for example, when you have a girl child and she is a child, begin to tell her that, oh, don't you know that one day you're going to be a wife and so you should do ABC, X, Y, Z. You are already conditioning her to see herself as secondary to a male existence, which, interestingly, we still do, even in this century, even though we hated it as kids growing up, because it meant that for everything that we did, we felt like we were under a microscope to be something else that was not us. You're in your 30s as a female, and your parents are telling you for any single thing that you want to do, or even you're in your 20s, do you think your husband will like that?
That was Mengbe Kering, our special guest and a young Nigerian sexual reproductive health expert who is hosting a photo and art exhibition of the Nigerian woman's sensuality. And with that, we come to the end of this week's edition of your Week in Review program, Africa This Week, on Home Digital 99.9 FM. I'm your producer and presenter, Bojang Jnr. Thanks for your company, and join me the same time next week for another edition of the program. FM 99.9 in Brikama Town. For all the businessmen and women, move out of the darkness, follow the light. Come sell your business with us today. Home Digital FM, let your customers know what you're offering. Be on top of your competitors. Home Digital FM, we will help you stand out. Come advertise with us today for all your businesses. We offer live program coverage both on Facebook Live and on the radio. Exos to sell your products and services. The media is in control. Tell your customers when, where, and how to meet you through Home Digital FM. Don't worry. Do your business. We will sell you out. Call us today on 734-3125 or 200-5770, 620-1413, 766-8394. Home Digital FM. Follow the light.